Well, hello everyone, welcome to a new video. Well, it's been some time, but still, I'm doing the regular uploads at least. Well, I got a new uniform to show you guys, and I guess you can probably tell what it is. It is the Obr88, commonly known as the Afghanka. Well, so the Afghanka, everybody knows about it, everybody wants one, but what exactly is it? Well, looking at a little bit of the history of the Afghanka, you see that it actually does not start to be issued around 1988. First appearance of these uniforms is around 1986, 1985 with the experimental versions, but commonly you see them first actually being used at Chernobyl. During the Chernobyl disaster, you see them being used by officers and whatnot, and KGB officials or some people basically. And obviously, most notably in Afghanistan, you start to see them popping out. The early models did not have the shoulder pockets, but regardless, it is the Afghanka we well know and well like. It started as, in Chernobyl and Afghanistan. That's why it's called an Afghanka. Anyways, the uniform is quite revolutionary for the Soviets at the time, even though they're kind of late to the BDU game, but still. Before they started to use the Obr88, they were using the Obr69, which is quite an interesting uniform that actually started around 1969, 1970. They started to use those to replace the Gimnastorka uniforms, which were the main Soviet uniforms from the 1940s, pretty much. And it was a different design, lower two pockets on the hips and 5-button open front, which was quite different than a Gimnastorka. And I believe a lot of people were actually really like, what is this? Why do we have this? Why are we using this uniform instead of the glorious, great patriotic war uniforms we have been using for the past 20 to 30 years? I digress. Anyways, so this uniform was designed to replace that previous uniform, which was being used in Afghanistan, and it's a tropical version, which would have a open collar. I mean, you can still close the collar of the tropical version, but it wasn't intended to be used most of the time as a clothes collar that also used trousers with lace-up boots instead of the sapogi. Those uniforms were quite outdated for Afghanistan, so new uniforms were experimented and issued, and Afghanka is the basically result of the experiences that the soldiers faced. And basically the Soviets said, this is the 1980s, we require a far modern uniform that we already have, and it needs to be better. Look at those capitalist Westerners doing, they're using these 4-pocketed strange looking uniform, might as well copy it, and which is basically what they did. The Afghanka is literally a copy of a Western style BDU jacket, with the addition of only, to be fair, the shoulder pockets, and obviously the typical Soviet / Warsaw Pact wives, obviously most notably being Soviet, is of course going to be the collar liner. And aside from that, it is generally just a regular BDU. Obviously there are some interesting bits about it, like drawstrings and whatnot, common to see again in Western uniforms. Strangely enough, the shoulder pockets actually use Velcro, so that's interesting to see. And strangely enough, the chest pockets and the hip pockets use buttons. I find it interesting that the Soviets decided to just use Velcro for the first time, and they only used it on pockets instead of using the whole uniform. But still, I suppose they had their own good reason for doing so. But aside from that, the uniform items, equipment, whatnot did not change at all. They only updated the uniform. They were still using the strange looking Y strap systems. Of course, they weren't being used in Afghanistan, but talking about the regular troops, the old 1970s, 1960s webbing with the rubberized coating on top is still being used, and right as well with the brass buckled leather belts for soldiers to use on day-to-day basis. In Afghanistan, they were using these even in combat, because technically these are supposed to be peace belts, and the one with the camouflage is supposed to be only issued during a wartime scenario, and Afghanistan was not technically a war, it was just an intervention in order to help the republic, the Socialist Republic of Afghanistan, obviously. Yes, comrade. Anyways, it's just like, you know, typical old Soviet designs keep still going on. Obviously, you see body armor being used, chest rigs being implemented during on the later stages of the war, where they were facing, oh, these are useful, why don't we copy the Chicom that the Mujahideen is using? So that happened, and they pretty much changed a lot of stuff with the Soviet uniforms, equipments in Afghanistan, but places outside of Afghanistan still kept the same stuff, which is kind of interesting that you don't see a lot of upgrades being done with the equipment. But well, at least they have their own aesthetics, I suppose, and nice look for us collectors. Anyways, one thing that is of course important, funny hair, is my Panama hat, Panamka, whatever you want to call it. This is sadly a late 1990 production, so not wartime dated. I saw that wartime ones, but I wanted to get one that fitted my head. So it's 1990 Tashkent and 59, so it's a big size for Soviet anyways, and I quite like it. It's basically the Soviet 1969 model of the Panama hat, you know, the same one that was used in Cock and Goal. They updated it obviously in the 1950s and the 60s. 1970s they started using these. No bright red huge star, less holes on the back. More holes, sorry. I have a replica Panama hat from, you know, for Cock and Goal anyways, but it's a different design, but generally speaking it's the same. It's the same hat they were using in the 1930s, obviously updated, quote unquote, and it's quite a useful sun cap compared to the Afghanka kepi that they have also being issued with the new uniforms instead of the pilotkas. I don't have one with me, but it's supposed to be back at home. I do have one. Maybe perhaps I can bring it here to England, but we shall see. At least there are photos of obviously the Panama being used by the Afghanka, and a lot of people say it's a better look anyways for Afghanistan. But I don't know, I quite like the Afghanka hat anyways, the Obr88 hat, much more with the Afghanka, so who knows, everybody suits themselves most of the time, but it happens. So aside from that, obviously my trousers, talking about the trousers, is going to be, you know, typical BDU style with large pockets on the sides, but obviously some unique Soviet features, mainly being obviously these are supposed to be used with sapogis, so underneath the trousers you have certain type of tape that goes underneath your foot to hold them in while you're putting on your sapogi. Obviously I don't have portianki with me, so I'm sorry if you have to see my funny looking socks or whatnot. I'm probably going to be recording this after, so I'm not going to be showing you my bare feet, don't worry. Anyways, luckily the sapogi I have are period correct with the correct soles, because these are the only sapogi that I have currently. I need to get my wartime ones with the dot soles eventually, I hope, but it's gonna take some while. Now with the Afghanka / Obr88, one thing that I should be getting in the future is obviously the winter kit. I do have an Ushanka, everybody obviously has to have an Ushanka, but I don't have the winter Afghanka, which is basically the same type of uniform with a larger collar and has an internal liner that obviously the material is thicker as well. Well, it's an internal liner with a fake fur collar, obviously, and also a hood. So that is something that I should be looking into, because in Afghanistan, what happened was, obviously in the daytime it's freaking hot, but in afternoon to, you know, late night, it gets freezing cold, and especially obviously the winter time, Afghanistan is also cold, so, and it snows, so it is a good idea to actually own some winter kit for Afghanistan, even if you were going to do some events, staying in a tent or whatnot. I would like to be comfortable, so buying a sleeping bag and, you know, whatnot would be ideal, at least something to do. It's been a fairly basic video, I know, but I have to make do with what I have, so I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.